everybody, how's it going? Today I have another guide for you. This one, not really a ranking, not really a tiering, kind of like a lot of the stuff I usually do come the weekend, but this was something someone suggested to me a bit ago, and I've kind of put it off a little bit because I was trying to gather the sort of information for me to put this video together, and if you read the title, you know I'm going to be talking about the best gear in the game. But there's a little asterisk on that because best is pretty subjective in this game because there's lots of different playstyles. Some of this gear may not be the best for certain playstyles, and also due to the RNG factor of the way the gear drops work, you may not ever see some of these items in a given playthrough. To be honest, there may be some insane gear out there that other players have gotten and it's just completely busted and I've never seen. And I know this is possible because not too long ago, I think it was about somewhere between 1 to 2 weeks ago, someone sent this piece of gear to the Discord, and it was like a level 10 or 15 gear that was crazy good and something I could see myself using in an in-game build, but it was completely new to me. It was not familiar in the slightest, so there's just tons of gear in this game, so I'm just going to kind of give my recommendations, stuff that I think is just kind of amongst the best gear in the game for a class, based off of just what I've encountered. So stuff to just keep your eye out for. If you see it, then you know this is a good one, I should hold on to this. I'm going to be going alphabetical order with the classes. There's no real reason to it, just seems easiest. So I'm going to start with the Arcanist, and I don't really have a lot of gear recommendations here. There's two broad ones and a more specific one I'll get to. The broad ones are going to be, first up, the Astral Ring. This is, I believe, a tower item, so your odds of getting this are actually pretty good. And it's a very powerful accessory for any Arcanist. I mean, technically this could work for a Marksman too, but we all know the state of Marksman right now, so I mostly use this for Arcanists. +2 tower range for range skills is absolutely phenomenal. Turns any Arcanist into a sniper, plus the extra 1 range they get through their own skills. +3 range is crazy. You'll be sniping enemies from across the entire map. And you get damage bonuses basically the further away you are from your enemy. If you're at least 6 tiles away from them and disengaged, which means there's no enemies within 5 tiles of you, not just the unit you're targeting, that's an extra 16 base damage. That's a huge damage boost, and with the +2 tower range, it makes it that much easier to get both of these bonuses off. This is just a crazy item all around for enhancing your damage potential, and something you definitely should be on the lookout for. The second Arcanist item I think is amongst the best you could get for an Arcanist is going to be the Ashes of Abhartach. Probably didn't pronounce that right. I don't think this is a tower item. I'm like 90% sure this is just something you have to get lucky and it drops from a mission. And you can see here why this is going to be pretty good. The bleeding effects aren't anything crazy, but I have found that if you stack some other bleed effects, this can actually get pretty nuts. On my Dagonet build that I posted a while ago at this point, I was getting like 50 damage bleed procs, and that's insane. But the first two on this are really, really good. -2 AP cost for Blood Hex, and you'd think this kind of is meant to synergize with the bleeding effects it kind of comes with, but it actually, the strength of this comes from synergizing with Mindstorm. Blood Hex costs 4 AP by default. So if you take Master of Hexes for the -1 AP cost and have this item as well, Blood Hexes, you can see here, cost 1. And with Mindstorm and cooldown cycling, it just makes your ability to cycle through all of your cooldowns so much easier, because now you have 2 abilities that can cost 1 AP, or more depending on which character you're using, but minimum of 2. And that just lets you throw out so many more offensive spells much more frequently. And then 36% Hex Intensity is just crazy good. Hex Intensity is just kind of busted when it comes to Death Hex, so an extra 36% on there is just going to do all kinds of wonders. Now, the last item I'm going to recommend for Arcanists, it's probably just some of the best gear you could get for them in the game, is kind of a tie, because it's ultimately, there's several items with this one effect. The one I'm going to show you, because I don't have a save file with the Summer Staff anymore, I accidentally deleted that like months ago. But Immolated One's Lament, you can see here it has the Wild Magic effect. After 8 spells, the Burning effect happens, where all burning effects immediately deal the remaining damage at once. So if you stack up your burning effects, you can see this comes with a +2 burning duration and another -1 AP cost for Blood Hex. So this is a really good one for someone like Ector who has access to Blood Hex. But you'll be doing hundreds of damage after you cast 8 spells, and if you have a very spell-heavy party, you will be triggering this multiple times per round even. And with Merlin or Ector, they could trigger this effect on their own sometimes once per turn. So it's just a crazy boost in damage. It'll turn either Ector or Merlin into a primary damage dealer, where they're throwing out hundreds of damage per round to multiple targets. It's a completely crazy item. It's a level 10 item, just like the Summer Staff, but you'll be carrying this into the endgame for sure. My memory may be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure there's a third item with this effect that someone linked in the Discord. I couldn't find the image. It's hard to search through all that stuff, so maybe someone can confirm this for me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure there's a third item with this effect, and it may be a level 15 version. Not super sure, and I haven't personally gotten it, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything because I've only gotten one Summer Staff over the course of like 7 runs. So RNG is a big factor here, like I mentioned before. Up next, I'm going to cover the Champion class, and this is a pretty popular class for the crazy stuff it can really do damage-wise and the combos. And there's honestly a lot of different gear pieces that can really work with Champions. But I'm just going to go over 3 that I think have just kind of proven themselves to just be crazy strong consistently time after time. Actually, make it 4. 4 items that have just proven to be just crazy strong time after time and consistently kind of give me what I think to be sort of peak performance for Champions. That's obviously a bit debatable, but you know, this is my take, so whatever. For me, the best weapon in the game for a champion is Sign of Epona. There's a lot of strong weapons, but none have really come close to this one, and this was a base game weapon too. It provides +1 AP, which is really good for champions because, you know, they can be a little more AP restrictive with generally having less movement and mobility, and they have that AP penalty from the heavy armor. So this is just a pretty good ability here. But what really helps carry it is the gain 2 movement AP for each kill with a melee skill. This just flat out fixes the mobility problem that champions have. You'll be getting tons of kills and generating tons of movement AP. I can't even count the number of times that I've ended a turn with one of my champions using this weapon where they'll be out of regular AP but still have like 10 movement AP left over. This just turns them into such a mobile unit. It's just really crazy, fixes their biggest weakness, and makes champions absolutely bonkers. And this comboed with the last ability on this weapon, gain 8 damage for 2 turns for each kill. This is just an extra 8 damage to stack with the rage. They already gain damage for kills, so this just synergizes with it so strongly and really helps get their damage numbers into those crazy figures you can see sometimes, talking like 4 digits in a single hit. And you can reach that breakpoint much quicker and easily with this weapon. Now this item is going to be a little bit of a cheat. This could honestly be applied to everyone, and I'll probably mention this again at the end when I cover just generic good items for every class. But the Earthsmith Ring I found to be extra helpful for champions. Again, it could be useful for anyone, but because the champion damage can ramp higher than other ones, that includes the Earthball skill. So you'll get a range skill on champions, which helps with their mobility problem, in the form of now they can just hit enemies from a range in a 3x3 AoE skill that will scale off of their rage damage bonuses. So you'll be one-shotting groups of enemies from, you know, what's the range on this? 3 to 8 range. It's crazy good. 1 AP cost too, so it's super easy to net AP gain off of, you know, things like Bloodlust from Rage or the Essence of Extermination. So while it's strong with everyone, I do think it's strongest with champions. Every item that I've mentioned before is really good, but I think I won't get much arguments on this. I think the best item in the game, hands down, for champions has to be the Wreath of Bebt. It's a level 15 item, but it's just crazy strong. It has a gain 3 AP on the first kill each turn, which is helpful for getting that first turn going, an extra 3 AP to prolong the turn. It's not a huge deal, but it is a nice bonus for getting your ball rolling. But the following two abilities on this are what makes it crazy. +2 damage until the end of the encounter for each kill, so this is just more of that damage bonus stacking to synergize with the rage ability, which is really good as well. But the thing that makes this busted is teleport next to the closest enemy within 8 tile ranges after each kill. 8 tiles is a huge amount, so when you get a kill, you just teleport next to the closest enemy for free. It costs no AP, you just move next to them and then can start swinging all over again. This completely invalidates the mobility problem that champions have. Especially the more kills you get, the easier it is to kill people because of the stacking damage bonus, the more you're going to be teleporting all around the map. And this item can enable one-turn sweeps more than any other item a champion can get access to. 8 tiles is a super high range, and if you combo this with pretty much any of the other items I've mentioned, it's really easy to just keep going, especially like with the Sign of Epona. You have the movement AP if you need to make some micro adjustments to move yourself so that way you're next to 2 enemies instead of 1, so you can get that free swing off. Wreath of Bebd is just hands down broken. It almost makes the game easy mode. This is actually one of the items in the game that I actually ban for my own personal use. I just flat out don't use this one because I think it makes the game too easy. It's that strong. Now I'm gonna get into defenders. And defenders are pretty crazy. Just, it's hard to pin down. There's no gear really that I think stands out as like, this is what will make them nuts. It's kind of a mix of a lot of things. The main thing is they just have so many defensive skills that, I mean, look at my Galahad here. 30 armor, 163 HP, 135 vitality. He's just an absolute brick. It's going to be so hard to hurt him to begin with. And then they have the block mechanic. So the damage they take, in his case, if it's a frontward facing attack, it's reduced by 50%, so getting through his HP pool in his armor is almost impossible. But there's definitely some gear that can help elevate this a bit more and just make you that much more unkillable when it comes to your defenders. And this item here, I think, helps accentuate and emphasize a lot of those abilities in particular. And the biggest one out of all of them is when hit, always turn towards the attacking unit. There are multiple pieces of gear that have this ability. It's actually not that hard to come across this, but you're always going to want at least one of these. This ability is probably the strongest ability you could get on a piece of gear for your defenders, because it means that block percentage here will kick in for like 90% of the attacks. There are some abilities that bypass this, such as like AoEs that don't target them directly, but most attacks will cause your defender to turn to face them and reduce the damage incoming by 50% or even more in some cases. So that is the best ability you could look for on any piece of gear when it comes to a defender. And like I said, there's a lot of different pieces of gear that offer this. Another good one, also on this piece of armor, is ignore 50% of incoming attacks armor breaking value. So the armor breaking that does get hit at him is going to be reduced by the 50% damage decrease, and then reduced by another 50% for its armor breaking value. So he's going to be losing no armor sometimes if the attack doesn't do enough damage. This is also a really good ability, and there's 25% versions of this, and it doesn't go above 50%. Also on different pieces of gear, it's a pretty high priority on things you want to be looking out for. A specific piece of gear, though, I will get into, which helps show off that block stat, is the Breakwater Hex Rune. I think this is probably the best weapon you could get for a defender if you want to focus on defensive stats. I don't think there's any other weapons that provide block, so if I'm wrong, then that one would also be high on this list, but to my knowledge, this is the only one. Its damage isn't great, but it's a weapon that provides 10% block, which is a crazy amount of block, and it's on a weapon, so it's very easy to stack block with other pieces of gear. On weapons, it's much more rare, so this is definitely one you want to look out for if you just want to make the most defensive defender possible. The last piece of gear that I'm going to highlight is definitely probably one of the best in the game right now for defenders, is actually a Soul Merchant piece of gear, and it's the Oathstone. And that's because it provides 5% block, which is always good, as I've mentioned, has the when hit turn to face the attacking unit, which is also really, really good, and this can let you play around with the armor piece a bit more. And the extra thing on it, reflect 10 damage, this is a lot stronger earlier in the game, it's okay later, but the Spire effect on this is actually crazy good. You can see here, deal 120 damage to adjacent enemies on the start of their turn. 120 is not bad. That's probably more damage than the defender will do with their own attacks, especially if you're landing this on 2-3 enemies. It's a crazy good Spire effect and a great way to boost up that defender damage, because I know some people don't really like defenders in the late game because their damage isn't great. This is good damage right here, so this is probably one of the best, if not the best, defender item in the game right now, in my opinion. And moving on to Marksman, I mean, just hands down the best gear in the game for them is the Soul Merchant gear. There's no beating around the bush, it's by far the best. If you're trying to make something work outside of the Soul Merchant gear, I actually have a build video, if you're interested, showing off sort of a non-Soul Merchant build and a Soul Merchant build side by side, kind of. And if you're curious what kind of gear to use, if you don't want to use the Soul Merchant, basically just look for anything that doubles damage or gives a percentage chance to double damage. Marksman actually have access to quite a few items that do this. It's alright, but the Soul Merchant gear will have the Marksman going from doing like a couple hundred damage per turn to doing a couple thousand. Honestly. I think I was able to break 3,000 damage with Sir Bors in my build guide video for him. There isn't much else to say. It's just the damage on this is absolutely crazy in terms of how much it boosts them. And yeah, I don't feel like this really warrants me going into a lot of detail for this. You can see what it does here for them. Just lots of damage bonuses. As we move on to Sage, this is also going to be a pretty short one. I don't have a whole lot for them where I'm like, yeah, this item really helps them do some crazy stuff that they couldn't do before. The Sage as a class is just very solid all around, so there's not a whole lot they need, and there isn't really much in the game that really helps elevate them. One item, though, that I think is sort of a automatic grab for me when I see it, though, would be the Lost Scrolls of K-Leech. I'm not sure if there's another item that has a similar effect to this, but this will give you an idea what I'm talking about. I mainly take this for the ability Adjacent Enemies Are Chilled. This just provides a very strong passive debuff on any enemies that get in melee with your Sage. This allows you to get more offensive with your Sage as well, having them go up into melee conditions and just start debuffing enemies. I think this is extra strong on Morgos because she's already a bit of a debuff machine. Lucan because he's much more tanky than the other Sages, so he can really, his playstyle already sort of incentivizes you to be getting up close in melee. And Guinevere, because she has teleport, she can easily get in and out of combat to apply the chill or retreat when she needs to get to safety. Now, I don't have an item of this on hand, but I do know there are some pieces of gear that provide cooldown reduction to the Bless ability and Inspire ability. I can't remember which, but one of them gets reduced every time you get a kill, I believe. It's probably Bless. And that's also very strong as well for your more standard support Sages like Leo, Guinevere, and even Isolde. And Lucan, basically anyone but not Morgos that has access to those skills. Those are very powerful support abilities. Anything to help reduce the cooldown on those is going to be really, really good. And last up is going to be the Vanguard class. And Vanguard is just a very strong class. They don't need a whole lot to go crazy, so you can really do some pretty cool stuff with them with any gear. Just look for stuff that increases backstabs and surprise attacks, but there are a few pieces of gear that I've discovered that I think just really provide some crazy stuff more so than any other piece of gear. And it's 4 items. It's 2 different chest pieces and then 2 different provisions, but they both provide a key ability here, and that's movement cost reduction. There's a level 5 version of this chest piece here and a level 5 version of the provision, if I remember correctly. It may be level 10 for one of them, but the point is they're low level. And then there's a high level version here at level 20. Movement cost reduced by 33% by itself is fairly strong if you only have one of these items, and I think you will notice a bit of a difference, but they stack. And when you have both of them, you can really feel it. You'll start being able to cross the entire map in a single turn. And I am not exaggerating. I mean, maybe some of the super crazy big maps you won't be able to, but even then, maybe. It's absolutely nuts because it also provides like movement AP on this one, so it's even more movement. And the Forerunner's Harness provides 14 extra damage, which is a huge damage boost after using a movement skill. So you just use jump, and then you get a 14 damage boost, which is really, really good. And movement skills can be used for movement AP, which lets you save AP on things like jump, and jumping attack becomes essentially a free skill. With the Soul Snare Sigil, there's the other abilities on this aren't really super good. I mean, it's helpful to maybe get an extra throwing dagger in, but nothing really nuts. I mean, the Soul Fragments is cool, having them expire 2 turns later, but you really take this for the 33% movement cost reduction. I've just found out of all the gear Vanguards get access to, managing to stack these effects here has been the biggest game changer in how I've experienced the Vanguard class. And lastly, I wanted to cover gear that any class can get access to that I think is worth mentioning as just some of the strongest gear in the game. And the first one I have to mention, I think everyone knows what it's going to be. It's the Teleport Ring. There's a level 5 version here where it's just teleport and plus 5 loyalty, and there's a level 20 version called the Michaud Legacy, which provides some other extra bonuses that can actually be kind of useful, and also the teleport skill. And these are just absolutely crazy. Teleport is such a strong mobility skill, especially when you give it to your primary damage dealers, your Vanguards or your Champions. Champions, it's a big deal because Champions lack mobility, at least until you get a lot farther into the game and you start getting some of those other pieces of gear I showed off early in the video. But being able to just, for 1 AP, position them right into the group of enemies, at their backs even, potentially, for backstabs, you just start doing crazy damage and wiping out groups of enemy much, much easier. And Vanguards, they're already mobile, but teleport makes them even more mobile for cheap cost as well. It's just, it can't be understated how strong this is, to the point where I know many players, myself included, have gotten the teleport ring at level 5 and then didn't take it off until I reached the end game. And some people don't even take it off then. If anything, they just replace it with the level 20 version and keep going with that. Teleport is that strong in this game. It's actually so strong where it's the second other item. There's only 2 items that I've banned for my own personal use when I play through this game. I just think it's so strong that it makes the game too easy for me, and I don't use it. Teleport ring, probably one of the best items in the entire game alongside Wreath of Bebd, where they're on my personal ban list. Moving beyond these 2 items, the other just really good items that I would say is amongst the best in the game that I would recommend to anyone be on the lookout for in their playthroughs, any item that provides a 1 AP skill. The Earthsmith ring is one of the stronger ones, I believe, and probably the best one you could take for a champion. But there's tons of other ones. There's one that has like bone spikes, bone cage, poison cone, a hurricane skill, I believe. There's a geyser skill. There's probably a couple others that I'm forgetting about. But all of those are very good because it's 1 AP for a good amount of damage. So it's just very cost effective. If you ever come across an item that has a skill that you can use for 1 AP, it's usually you have to get like a certain amount of damage dealt or a certain number of kills. Usually it's not super hard to get when you get later into the game. I would definitely hold on to them, play around with them, see if you like them before just discarding them for something that may offer some good stats. And that's all I have for my best gear in the game. Really, this is more of just a gear recommendation video. But I could be forgetting about some things that I've even played with. I've lost some saves over time, so I went through my saves to try and dig up anything that really stood out to me, and it's very possible I may have just forgotten something because I don't have the save anymore, and that makes me sad. But if there's a piece of gear that you think is just really crazy and nuts that I have maybe forgotten about or maybe haven't even encountered, go ahead and let me know in the comments. I would love to see what you guys have come across that's just turned out to be, nuts or game-breaking for you. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in the next one.